Hi, everyone. How are you? So we will give it a couple minutes for everybody to trickle in. Welcome. If you're meeting me for the first time, my name is Casey Garrett, and I'm the founder at Solstice Mind and Body Studio. We're a healing arts studio in Sonoma County, California. Hi, everybody. And I'm super happy to be here with Allison Post tonight. She is a healing artist and somatic educator, and I have so many questions for her. It'll be a really rich conversation, so thank you for being here tonight. So a few logistical things, if this is the first talk you're joining us for, there is a chat box and a Q&A box. You can use either one. I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the talk. So if you have a question that you didn't have a chance to send in, you can send it in on the chat, and I'll try to weave it into the talk or at the end of the talk. So, hi. Oh, good. Lots of you are here. So I wanted to begin, first of all, by just acknowledging Allison's work. Her career in reading the book, I love the book so much. This is a beautiful book. It's called The Gut Wellness Guide, and I thought it was going to be about gut health. I was expecting it was going to be, you probably get this a lot. Like I was like, I'm just going to learn some new kimchi recipes, and it'll be about the microbiome and a lot of nutrition, right? And I was so delighted by this book. I was surprised by the book and your narrative style. Like I could really feel your energy and the depth of yourself and your practice in your words, which is really rare and special in a book. So thank you for the book, first of all. I loved it so much. And there's so many questions that I have for you about it. But I also wanted to acknowledge, someone, I've been in the healing arts for a long time. What really struck me is you've been at this for a very long time. And for a very long time, you must have, in many ways, you've been ahead of your time for a long time. So when you were starting to do this work, you must have at times been very lonely. You were a pioneer in many ways, what you've been teaching and practicing for so many years. So I just wanted to acknowledge of that. You must have felt like you were out in the field for a long time. And it must be really nice to feel like you have some more company now, right? As people discover. Yeah. So I thought it'd be really fun to have Allison start with a little bit of her personal story and journey. She was born on the East Coast, and in reading about your childhood and kind of some formative events that led you to your work, I was reminded of a talk I was listening to Sharon Salzberg, a meditation teacher, and she shared with the group, she had a really challenging childhood, and she shared that she would not wish her childhood on anyone, but she was supremely grateful for her childhood because it pointed her in the direction of what her purpose and meaning and path was. So when I was reading about your experience of when you were 19, I was like, that's pretty clear, the universe telling you, Allison, here you go.
Without a doubt, yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start there, and if you could share a little bit about how you got started. And
Sure.
mm-hmm.
Well, I was brought up in New York City, and I was dancing, singing, acting, running around like the crazy people that we do in New York City, growing up way too soon, doing things way too young, but I appreciated it. I had a challenging childhood, both in my formative years with my family. We had a lot of stuff that went on, but also because I grew up so fast, I was already asking for birth control, which actually it's in this day and age, kids are getting it much sooner than I did. But, in my late teens, I got a Dalcon Shield, which was an IUD, so that I could wait until I got married and I did want children, that I could have children when it was appropriate time. And I could still run around and have my fun. And unfortunately, the Dalcon Shield was a device that was taken off the market a few years after I fell ill from it. And millions of women, unfortunately, suffered greatly from that device. 18 women died, and millions of women lost the ability to bear children. Many women had pelvic inflammatory disease, which is what I had. And there was just proliferative infection and scarring that spread through the bowels. Scarring spreads. So when I was 19, I was in my first semester of college, and I crawled into my roommate's room one night and just was in so much pain. And by the time they got me to the infirmary, I just went into a delirium for 2 or 3 days. They did not know what to do with me. They didn't really understand what was going on until they sent me to the hospital because I wasn't improving. And I pushed 105, which is not a good fever to have. They hooked me up to IV antibiotics, where I stayed for 5 weeks. So what we know now about gut wellness is 5 weeks of IV antibiotics are going to set you up for a little bit of terror later on, but it saved my life. That's what they're for. And, this was in the 70s. So they didn't know a lot, but they had started seeing that this was happening to women of all ages. So they did help me, and except I was a vegetarian at the time, and they made me eat peanut butter every day because they didn't know that you could get protein anywhere else. But it was an awakening. And unfortunately, for years after that, I just struggled because they just let me out of the hospital and kind of wished me good luck and told me I'd probably have quite a lot of problems and surgeries. So, but I'm kind of a joy bubble, very optimistic gal. So I was like, no, I'm going to dance and sing. And I was in a lot of pain, and I couldn't play tennis anymore. And so I took up yoga at 19, and it was not popular at the time. People thought I was a little wanky, but I did. And I started to be able to, little by little, use my diaphragm again, which was stuck probably up into my throat. And I started to feel my body because I was a body person. I was always in there. And I had been out for a while. And so yoga started my journey. Breathing started my journey. And for the next 10 years, I stayed in the theater. I went to England, I studied there. I lived my life, but I had my eye on the healing arts. I had acupuncture before it was legal. I discovered colonics because I couldn't go by myself. All of these, and I was rubbing my belly before I knew what I was doing. And I was relaxing, and I took up meditation because my body was just completely constricted. So through my own healing and through my belly, I discovered that I just wanted to help people not go through for the long term that I had to. And I started just studying everything. So it's been a 40-year journey, basically, of yoga and Ayurveda, Chinese medicine. I went to acupuncture school for a year. I studied every form of body work. I realized quickly for acupuncture that it was an amazing system, but I wanted to use my hands, not needles. And then a little over 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I discovered craniosacral therapy. And as a meditator, I was like, okay, this is it. And so the way I did body work became much more still, slow, gentle, and it improved my own health. Every year, I felt like I got better. Did I have trouble? Yes. Do I have things that I have to be really careful about at 64? Yes. But I keep learning. I never stop learning. I'm actually, after 45 years, in a teacher training for yoga. Just because, not because I'm going to be a teacher, but it's just, wow, there's just so much in life that adds to what you can do for yourself. And as a result of that growth, what you do for other people, what you can hold for them, what you can understand so that they can heal and then our culture can heal. That's just, yeah, that's what happened at 19. The universe said, here's your path. um, and luckily, I embraced it instead of fought it.
Mhm. Beautiful. Beautiful. The book, yeah, one of the things that I love so much about the book is it is so, you are so curious, and that's so clear in the book. There's something like you can nerd out on the science and anatomy a little bit, and then if you're a meditator and there's spirituality woven in. So I thought it'd be helpful for everyone because I know my perception of what the belly is was infinitely more limited than what it actually is. So I thought it'd be helpful if you could define that the belly is not just your stomach, right?
No, yeah,
Yes. So
definitely.
I thought that would be great to start with. And then I loved how you talk about the belly being the seat of emotion. And that was beautiful. So if you could elaborate on that for people, especially right now in this moment, I think it's very
Yes, we're without a doubt.
yeah.
Well, your belly is actually, your stomach is all the way up, in your rib cage, and that is part of your belly and your abdomen. But your abdomen goes all the way down to your pelvis. So all around your navel, if you take your own fist, those of you that are with us, and you put your fist on your navel, that will just be your small intestine. It's a 20 feet of wrapped up tube, and that's where you assimilate your nutrients. So the stomach helps when you swallow your food and it goes into your stomach, and the acids and everybody's kind of broken down into chyme. That's what your stomach does. It's on your left side. But also, you have a gallbladder and a liver and a pancreas and a spleen, and all of these organs are contributing into immunity and digestion so that the small intestine can decide, should I stay or should I go? Can I use you? Can I become you? Literally, what you do in your belly becomes who you are, in tissue, in bone, in hormones, in energy, in things that are tangible, and then things that are vibrational. So it's happening there, and your breath is happening there. It's actually enabling you, as in your belly, to move your diaphragm in the right direction so that your lungs can oxygenate, your heart can beat, and then you can actually become hands and feet and brain and movement. So the belly is the seat of your digestion. It's the seat of um, your neurotransmitters. When you say emotions, if you just go into the science of it, we make, for instance, 95% of our serotonin in our gut.
That's wild.
It
Yeah.
is a wild thing, and when you think about that, people are taking serotonin uptake drugs for depression. I have nothing against any of that because I've worked with psychiatrists and psychologists all through my career, and people need support in so many different ways until they can learn how their body can support them, how their body works. So if we have 95% of our serotonin being made in our gut, what can we do to support our guts in order for us to actually get that working, and maybe not going into places or down, you know, into the wrong places, or not forming enough of because of what's happening in the gut. So breath, stress, cortisol, all of these things are happening in your organs, in your kidneys, your adrenal glands. And that's when I say the belly is a wide expanse um, of chemicals, of hormones, but also of feelings, of where we make those great chemicals that go to our brain. Nine times more to your brain and through your vagus nerve than goes down to your gut from your brain. Your belly leads the way. So
That's fascinating. And so important. I think that's the missing piece when we talk about food and nutrition, is how much it impacts us emotionally and our mood. That when so much outside of our reality or outside of our body is, we have no control over that vibration a lot, or the negativity. But what we put in our bodies, if we knew how much that could contribute to our own joy and happiness and uplifting in spite of what's going on around, um, it really changes your perspective of food and what you want to put in your body. Are there certain foods aside from sugar? I know how you feel about how you feel about sugar. You can elaborate on that, why that is. But if especially as it gets kind of cold and damp and the days get really short, it's hard to stay up lifted sometimes. So it becomes even more important not to fall back into the sugary foods. Or they're great foods that you would recommend to keep your vibe high, and things you definitely want to stay away from, including sugar.
I will start by saying I have a whole chapter in my book about sugar. When I was a kid, I read Sugar Blues. I was like, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old. And it was kind of shocking at that point because we were brought up on sugar. But sugar is a poison as far as I'm concerned. It's a toxic poison. It actually robs your body of nutrition in order to metabolize. B vitamins, folate, literally, it takes from you. It doesn't contribute a thing. It does contribute false energy that you don't really have and you think you have. Different than caffeine, different than anything else. So that's the one thing I always say to people. I don't eat sugar. I mean, I do love sweets and I love fruit. I mean, there's so many beautiful things. And I think honey has some value if you want to have a teaspoon of it, not half a jar. I mean, if we're moderate, I think we can have everything except for sugar. Any white foods for me are really challenging. Refined foods, I think we need to stay away from that. We need to cook. I mean, the pandemic has been a blessing for some people. I know it's been a very challenging time and I wouldn't lessen that. But it's also been a learning period of, oh yeah, we can make soups. We can have things on the stove. We can have warm, I mean, especially this time of year. This is the time of year for warmth. And whether you're vegan, vegetarian, or you're a meat eater, depending on where you come from, what your blood is, there's just so many things that go into the choices of what is good for you, your genetics. So, but warm food at this time of year, I mean, in Chinese medicine, warm food is where it's at anyway. So I do think raw food has a place, and I think salads are heaven on earth. But at this time of year, I like to put warm foods on top of my lettuces even. It slightly wilts them. They're easier to digest. And it's not like, when you put cold into your body, especially like ice water or a cold drink, it's kind of like being at the beach when it's been warm all day and there's just a very slight breeze and you're so comfortable. The temperature starts to drop and the wind comes up and you're like really uncomfortable. That is happening in your body. A lot of times you're creating wind. So you get gassy, you get uncomfortable, you get cold, your hands and feet don't get enough blood flow. So this is the time of year in particular, for those of us that are living in this hemisphere, we need warm food. So soups are incredibly nourishing, yummy, I hope. I know some people don't care for them, but lentil soups, vegetable soups, people that eat meat, bone broths are really good bases. And they're really nourishing for your gut lining. Lots of glutamine, things that can really help you be permeable enough in your gut lining, which is what we need. You know, the lining around your gut is like a cheesecloth in a way, and it lets out exactly what you need in all the areas. It's like, oh, I'll send this to the fat system, I'll send this to the liver, but I'm not going to send this out. It's too big. I haven't broken it down yet. Or this is toxic. I'm going to send this out to the large intestine to be eliminated. But a lot of times, if we're eating things that aren't nourishing, if we're too cold, if we have some autoimmunity, if different things are happening, or we've eaten too much sugar, or we have too much stress, that's going to become too permeable. The cells are going to separate, and we're going to get things into our body that don't belong in our blood. So the eating, I think more than choosing what you're going to eat, I always welcome people to enjoy their eating time.
Mm.
Have a wonderful environment. When you're by yourself or when you're with somebody else, chew your food, love it. You know, just wow, how does it feel going down your throat? Let it, eat slowly, savor every bite. Know what it feels like, the food, because mostly we don't. We're in a rush, we're in the car, we're talking, we're watching things, which I really hope people don't do when they're eating. I think creating a beautiful situation, rituals for eating, is so important. Keeping the stress levels gentle and loving, and knowing that you're loving yourself by introducing nourishing food. But you have to like the food. I also encourage people not to eat things they don't like. If they don't like the taste, they may never be able to, like, I've never been able to cultivate the love of green beans. And it turns out, if I've ever taken a food sensitivity test, that they don't agree with me anyway. So it's interesting if you look at those kind of comparisons. But I think it's important to go, yummy, this is so good. Or wow, this tastes so good for me. Or this warmth going down is really nourishing me. So we need to be curious, and we need to experiment with all sorts of different foods, and stay with what you believe. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, there are many reasons to feel that way and to take on that lifestyle. Make sure you have a balanced diet, you get enough protein, you get enough of everything, and that you enjoy the food. So
Beautiful. I wanted to talk about unwinding. So I loved practicing unwinding. I did it while I was reading the book. And so I did it for about, I don't know, it's been about 3 or 4 weeks now since I originally read the book. And I started doing a short practice in the morning, alongside my meditation practice, where I would lie completely down.
beautiful.
And it was really profound. Just noticing, and also being, for so long, so many of us in California have been without our regular body work and massages.
Yes.
We couldn't go. And I was just even touching my own belly. I was like, wow, I could, wow, right? So I wondered if there's much more detail in the book, but if you could let everybody know just what a short unwinding practice looks like.
Sure.
And also if you're doing it with yourself, just even what motion you work, because yeah, it was really profound, just a short practice.
Well, first of all, the fact that you're practicing is the beginning of the unwinding, right? That you allow yourself the time to be with yourself, to be with your breath, and to be supine, to lay down and actually go, oh, I'm resting and I'm going to go inward and feel myself. So that's half of it right there, that you're taking the time. I always say to people, don't get out of bed in the morning. Feel your breath. Let's just start with feeling your breath, because there's a lot of unwinding in just not doing your breath, feeling, noticing, following, being amazed at what your breath is doing. Maybe you don't feel it in your left rib cage and you feel it in your right rib cage. Maybe you can't get it down into your belly. This is for a lot of people. They don't notice any movement. They're just kind of all stuck. There's no judgment in unwinding. This is what it is. And wow, I wonder if I take my hands and I put it where my navel is on my belly, what does that feel like? Just the touch of my hands on my belly. Because even in massage, a lot of people go get a massage and the belly isn't even addressed.
Mhm.
You know, you do the back, you turn over, legs, arms, neck, chest, and it's like, that's it. This is like the area where we don't touch.
Mhm.
A lot of massage therapists more and more have, at least touched it and touched into it, invited the breath there, because really in a culture, I want to say, particularly in the last 4 years, people are more and more holding their breath, like, we're in red alert half the time. So we're not in our center. We don't drop into our pelvis. Most people can't even feel their feet. So this is kind of the gateway. It's like, the treasure trove, the center where everything's happening from. Your movement emanates from there, and your vibration and your breath. So if you lay down and just start by putting your hands on your belly and noticing the rise and fall of your breath, slowly and gently. And if you can't do it slowly and gently, you can make a little bit of effort and go from to, if you can. Notice if you can relax at the bottom of your breath. Could there be a pause when you exhale? And what does that feel like in your body and in your belly? So the breath is the first part of unwinding. And once we touch into the breath, then we can approach our navel. So we wouldn't go right inside the navel. It's very tender there, but around the navel, we just kind of start to check out what the rim of the navel feels like. For instance, in yoga, there are like 10,000 nadis that come from there. And there are connections into your organs. It's the connection of your umbilical cord. It's the original scar, so to speak. It's where you got your nutrition and sent out your elimination before you were you. You were becoming you. So, what is that about? What can we learn? If we touch into our navel, we might feel little pebbles and rocks, or tight in one area and not. Again, we just notice, we breathe, we feel. And little by little, it softens. The breath becomes easier. We slow down. We're more gentle with ourselves because we're getting to know the rhythms, the temperature. We're getting to feel if we have something that's taut, or we have tofu. We have so many different levels of feeling tissue. And tissue, like, do we ever feel our tissue? Yes. We feel our muscle. But how about if we feel our blood flow, our heartbeat coming through our belly, which you can feel, you're pulsing, just getting to know what's there. And a lot of times, within 5 to 10 minutes, it will be time to eliminate. For those of you who have trouble eliminating, and who have trouble with constipation or with too fast of an elimination, this will bring a balance of rhythm and energy to your belly. Spread the wealth all over. Talk to those bacteria that are dancing around in there. Maybe even help them mellow out with the good and the bad, not the bad. I never want to call it bad bacteria, but the bacteria that's a little more virulent. We want to keep them under control, and we want to keep the good bacteria happening, because that's who you are and how you're performing all your important roles. So by unwinding, is slowing it down, breathing, and touching into your belly, first at your navel, and then maybe just making clockwise circles around and around, and feeling your skin. Like, is it hard in some places, too soft in other places, cold, hot in other places? Like, what's there? That's unwinding, is finding out really what's going on in there. And suddenly you might feel that, like, wow, your diaphragm works the right way. Your heartbeat slows down and you feel restful, maybe not tired, but more energy, even because you're not using up your energy so much.
Mhm. I wanted to read a passage that leads into the next question. I love this part of your book. It's in the chapter called "The Inner Voice." So you say,
My favorite.
yeah, on a different or higher note, within the chest and throat, there lives a potential we cannot deny, but to our detriment: the voice. The inner voice arises by virtue of inspiration, and in exhalation, it gives expressions to our heart's desires. It is vital to reawaken and enliven the chest and throat through relaxation, and to connect them to the intuitive viscera. A spirit cramped within a tight breast that is grasping half-heartedly for air can only repeat what it has been told, report what it has learned is acceptable, and say only those things it meekly imagines what others want to hear. The true voice speaks for the whole person, the entire body. And if it's constrained within the breast and throat, it literally must be resuscitated. It will take some doing, though, and with much courage. So I love that. And I love the connection that you make between the breath and the belly, and finding one's voice and one's expression in the world, be it artistic expression, creative expression. I would love for you to talk more about that.
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's really what we are and who we are. Probably we wouldn't have to worry too much about food or nutrition or most things if we could just be ourselves. And being ourselves is our breath. Our breath belongs to us. And what we end up doing is we're very permeable. We share the space with everybody. There's no such thing as boundaries or walls. We are one. We are that. And you can feel that vibrationally. So if you choose to keep into a very tight place because somebody has told you where you're supposed to be, which is happening in our world more and more. I mean, God bless us all for these last 4 years where we've been bullied, basically, even by our own government. But this happens to people from the day that they're born. This happens in the schoolyard. It happens with teachers. They don't mean to do it. I forgive everybody and have compassion because we're brought up in a way where we feel like we have to tell children to be seen and not heard. We have to tell them the way they should do things instead of helping them develop their way. And I work with a lot of babies and children who are stuck up into their diaphragm and can't breathe. And they start breathing, they actually calm down and they get their voice, but their voice is something that's communicative, it's connected, and it's not like they want to take over and do whatever they want to do. they can feel themselves and they can feel you and they can feel the difference. And if we can start discerning between who we are inside of our bodies, how we connect, and then how we connect to the larger sphere of the universe, we have all of these places to be from inside ourselves. The breath is the jumping off point. It's connected to our heartbeat. You know, if you're breathing and panting, your heartbeat speeds up, right? If your heartbeat slows down, your breath can slow down. So if we connect to our breath, we can feel, oh, I don't think I like being around that person. They talk too loud and they make me feel not so good about myself. But this person, wow, we are happiness together. Or again, wow, I really love to dance. But you know, without breathing, pretty hard to dance. And usually you'll have two left feet, or you'll feel like you're not good enough, or even looking in the mirror. You know, if you're breathing and you're grounded, you're beautiful. Everybody is so beautiful. But you can see yourself if you're inside of yourself, because what you're seeing is what other people have reflected to you in their breath, in their words. And suddenly your breath is love. You know, your breath is, I can't help personally, because I'm inside myself mostly, not all the time, but mostly. You know, I'll be sitting somewhere or walking on my creek near my house. I can't help talking to the dogs. I can't help saying to somebody, oh my God, you look so wonderful today. I don't even know them, but the joy that comes through me is free, because I'm a joy bubble and I love to bring joy. And so I do. I don't feel like I shouldn't, because I'm not in the right company, or it's not the right thing, because I'm just contributing joy. So you get to feel who you are, what you want to impart to others, how you want to connect. And suddenly you want to write a book. You know, you want to tell somebody you love them. You're not scared, because it's who you really are and you want to give.
Mm-hmm. I love that you too acknowledge that it requires courage.
It
And
does.
bravery
It's a
to
lot
get
of
there,
courage.
because finding your voice can really stir things up in your life,
Breathing,
right?
breathing
Right?
can stir
And
things up.
yeah, and so it's one of the things that we at the studio comes up a lot is that helping people to understand that healing is often not comfortable, right? It happens when we feel safe enough to do so.
Yes.
And it's counterintuitive a lot of the times, because people will, they're like, I'm finally in a healthy romantic relationship for the first time in my life, or I just moved out into my own living space for the first time in my life. And so they're in these circumstances where they should be happy and joyful. And then all of a sudden the wheels come off, and they have physical symptoms, they have emotional symptoms, anxiety. Um, so can you speak to, that's the bravery and the courage, I think, that
Yes.
that you're speaking to. Can you speak a little bit more about that for
Sure.
people?
Healing is a lifelong journey, especially for most people. Most people had injuries, traumas, they grew up in war-torn countries, or they experienced violence in their own homes. And so they survived, and they're somewhat thriving, and they've chosen a partner, for instance, that's kind and loving, but he or she might have an expression on their face, literally just an expression of kind of like this, because they're trying to think of something, but you don't see that person thinking. You see that person not liking what or she is hearing, or being disapproving of you, because you were used to that expression. And so when you start to realize that, oh, they're mad at me, we want to teach that the breath can help you slow it down, and also then express to that person, wow, you can't believe this, but I'm actually feeling you're disapproving of me, because it is in the communication. And just understanding that we're going to be unwinding all of this stuff with people, with ourselves, but we do have to find the safe spaces to do it. And it's a slow process. So you develop relationships with people who are healing artists that are somatically savvy, that can help you feel safe, so that you can start feeling, breathing, and expressing to that safe person. So, therapy is great, cognitive therapy, and all these therapies where we talk it out. But what happens if we can also be held? If we can get in touch with our breath and our body, and something comes up, and then we can learn how to slow it down with breath, with the safety of an objective person who then can teach you to have the courage to bring what you've learned into your living space, into the office, into the places where you can say yes, but also where you can say no. So, I mean, every day of our lives takes courage. I mean, being human, you have to be courageous. And when you're taught to be timid, or when you're told to stay in the corner and not speak, it takes a lot of courage to move through that. And that's why we have, I think, an explosion of the healing arts, more and more and more. And it's crucial during this time, in particular with the pandemic, where so many people are alone. So many people aren't being touched or held. I mean, when I get to work now in a limited way, but I still work online with people and do a little bit what I did, talking about feeling your breath and working with your skin. And I actually can lay people down and watch them and watch their breath, and they can talk to me and tell me how they feel. And we can work through a craniosacral belly session, literally. And it's actually even more powerful because they're engaging. But we're giving them the permission. We're infusing the courage of, wow, I can feel good. I'm learning to feel good. Therefore, I can take that into my home.
Mm-hmm.
So
Lovely.
it is a beautiful thing.
So next question. This has come up so much since the weekend. So a lot of people experienced a really profound physical and emotional sensations of all stripes this weekend. And I thought it's a really good example of emotions being stored in the body unconsciously. A lot of people expressed how surprised they were by how profound their muscle tension was, or deep, deep grief that came in waves, and just was released over the weekend. So if you could speak to that, and perhaps some practices to help move through those really intense sensations.
That's also going to take some time. I'm one of the people that experienced intense emotions, sobbing, hysterical laughing, all sorts of things, disappointment, sadness. But everybody has a different flavor of it, depending on where they've come from in their own lives, how they were impacted by this particular person and the posse around the person. And for some people, I really want to put this out. The fact that it went the way it went was very hard for a lot of people. They wanted the opposite, and they're also 70 million or so human beings. They are also experiencing it in their body and in their emotions. And I really want to make space for that. We have to give ourselves permission to take the time, to even take time off What a concept, right? I mean, I mentioned to you when we were first talking before we started that I made sure the day after election day that I wouldn't work, and I wanted everybody to just take space because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how I was going to respond as a result. And I needed time we need time to process things. And we have been, a lot of us who feel a certain way, um, we were holding so much anger, frustration, disbelief, worry. I mean, I see kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old, and they're like, where's my life going here? Climate change. I mean, all the things that we were dealing with are like, so suddenly you think, oh my God. And your body starts to decompress. Hopefully it can. For some people, I mean, I've been working this whole time. The shoulders are still up to the ears. The diaphragm has like done belly flops inside of the rib cage, and it doesn't quite know if it's safe yet. So again, we have courage. Again, we have safety. But I welcome people to take time. First of all, turn off the news. Give yourself a break, and get if you are with somebody, get a foot rub from them. If you aren't, I actually give myself, I'm very lucky. My husband's a body worker. And also, I really want to say, if it wasn't for him, that book would not be half as good. He's an amazing writer. He like videotapes my classes. And then he's the editor of The World, and feels very similar to the way I feel about healing. But we need to do self-care practices. And I think that somehow there's like a little bit of a dirty word, self-care, like, oh, you're selfish, or you take too much, you're narcissistic, like our new go-to word. It's like, no, you are preparing yourself for connection when you take care of yourself. You know who you are. You're more in your body. You're more with your breath. So Epsom salt baths, candlelight evenings, reading, even if you're on Zoom and having dinner with somebody, reading to each other, making each other laugh, bring in the joy, slow everything down. Because we were all making phone calls, a lot of us. We were out there marching in the streets. We were doing our due diligence. There's got to be a time when we don't. That's the best advice is, can you put your feet up? Can you roll around? Literally, can you get on your roller and just like feel your back and do some yoga? Take time for yourself every single day. And little by little, those shoulders will go like this. You deserve it. You're a human, and you will be able to offer more, no matter if you're a healing person or you're a policeman, or you work in an office space. You will come in with a much calmer persona and person, and everybody will feel more comfortable. It will spread, but most of all, you will be caring for yourself. We can't care for anybody else if we don't care for ourselves. It's just not possible, because it's not real. So we'll get real by just taking time. Getting spoiled, as they say. We'll spoil ourselves if it makes you feel better. I'm giving you permission to do that.
Beautiful. I next wanted to chat with you about, I love your embrace of slowness and gentleness in your practice and in healing. It's so counter to everything that we're taught in so many ways, of looking for something outside of ourselves, looking for something that fixes things right away, versus more of an allowing and an unwinding, being with discomfort, noticing and being with it. I'd love for you to speak more to that and incorporating that concept into our lives.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue from where we were just coming from about the self-care. I mean, gentle and slow, besides love, are my favorite words in the language. I just love the thought of slowing down and being gentle. I think that, deep body work, for instance, can be really wonderful for people, but not until the layers are prepared to receive that body work. And for a lot of people, um, they'll say to you, "You couldn't go deep enough." Like,
Mhm.
wow, okay, but let's do it layer by layer, because actually I can go deeper by being present with you, by actually listening to the waves of your blood, of your fluids, of your heartbeat, of your tissues, so that I can join with you and do what's appropriate for your body. And then I can touch somebody's spine through their belly if they're relaxed and if we have worked so that their belly's open for that. But if I would do that at the beginning it could take years. I have literally worked with one person. I tell this story a lot to my students. An actor, it was over 25 years ago, and he couldn't have anybody touch his belly. And he came to me for belly work. And I was like, and it was challenging. I said, okay. He said, I have these digestive problems, and I am great on stage, but I'm not great off stage in my body. What can I do? So I started him out by putting his own hands on his belly. And we learned how to breathe, and he slowed down, and he even noted, and it took a couple of months. Then I was able to put my hands on top of his hands. So when we're talking slow and gentle, eventually, after 6 months, I was able to work on his belly. And little by, I work with some of my clients have been coming to me for 30 years, literally, um, because it's supportive and because it's safe and because we can go to the depths. We can even go to the depths without touching, because we're just so intuitively present. And by intuitive, I mean we are listening, we are watching, we are seeing the breath, we're feeling the energy, and then just placing hands, all of a sudden the body can go. You're not going to get that if you stick your elbow in. And not that elbows aren't great. I actually love like shiatsu and Thai massage. I mean, I just love getting body work, but I need to be relaxed for it. If somebody's going to just go after me, I'm going to have to say, I can't do that. You have to prepare me. I have to feel safe. We have to have slow movement, not fast movement. And you have to get to my rhythm. So how is a body worker going to get to another rhythm if they're not slow and gentle, at least to start out? And then the slow and gentle always stays, even if you're going deeper or if you're speeding up, because you have presence. You can't have presence without that. And then there are seas of possibilities. As Patti Smith, one of my favorite singers, would say, you just can really dip into the sea of possibilities. We are just, there's a universe of what can be done in the body, and how good you can feel and how relaxed you can get with energy.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good metaphor for then bringing that to our lives, right? Like imagine if we could bring that off the table, off the mat into
That's the point, right?
our lives, and yeah, and that's
Yes.
what we need so much right now is possibility and creativity.
Yes.
Um, my final question, then we have some questions from the audience, but my final question is the link with your belly and your intuition and your knowing. I would love for you to speak more to that. We know that to be true, most of us, but physiologically and energetically, how does that work?
So again, your breath lives in your belly and the way you are settled in your belly. I mean, if you really think about it, if you were to always use your limbs, you would get exhausted. You can't do anything without movement from your belly, right? Movement comes from your belly, but you're thinking from your belly. Again, your neurotransmitters are there. You've got you have a second brain in your belly, literally. One of my great teachers, I did not feel that lonely when I started out because of that, the second brain. A doctor was actually talking about it. It was very exciting. You have so many chemicals, so many nervous system connections. Your deep part of your nervous system, which is your emotional tenor, comes from your belly. So your intuition, what is intuition? Right? Intuition is knowing yourself first. And if you know, suddenly that's so clear to you. The way somebody's speaking, it's like, wow, that person's really upset. They're because I can feel their tension. I mean, so many people who are sensitive come in to, especially in learning situations, and say, I can't be in a group. It's overwhelming for me. There's just too much going on in there because they're feeling that. We have the intuition, we have the knowing of what's going on, but if we can settle inside our breath, that's the real knowing, because we know ourselves, we know our breath. Physiologically, then, if something's wrong, for instance, your first question about food and nutrition, the minute you swallow something that doesn't work for you, it's, instead of just creating angst, discomfort, reflux, constipation, anger because the liver's overworking, you choose the things that create joy. That's intuition. Oh, that's the good thing for me. So once you know yourself and your breath is your guide, it contributes to the way your brain functions, and it contributes to, you just know because you're neutral. Knowing is a neutral space. It's not, it is curiosity. It's not, oh, I know that because I was told that if somebody's jaw is tight, then they have TMJ. Well, no, maybe it has nothing to do with their jaw. Maybe it's their pelvis. And if you're neutral and you're actually observing because you're inside your own body, I literally feel everybody in my body just for a couple of minutes, though. And then it's like, oh, that might be a pattern that's happening there. Let's find out. So my intuition leads me, but then reality, presence, and communication and connection, that's all part of it. I hope that answers for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's perfect. So, the first question we had, thank you guys, was, since the writing of your first book, what would you say is the biggest thing that you've learned since writing?
My God, what a great question. Wow, that was we wrote that book probably from the late 90s until the early 2000s. It was published in 2003. I think I learned that I know nothing. That it's, I think I learned that we can never think we know anything. We need to find out always. Even if the same client comes to you over and over again, or something's coming up in your own body, like my body, it might not be what I think it is or what it was before, because it's now. I think I know so much more about now, even though I've been trained on now since I was 19. It's a process.
Mhm.
So I think, certainly the microbiome was not even in the colloquial language. We didn't really know about the microbiome. We knew something about bacteria. So I've learned so much about that. Um, and that's been an incredible thing. But mostly I think I continue to learn that there's always something to learn and that I don't know a lot. Um, and I want to remain curious.
Beautiful. The next question's hilarious. Um, when I have butterflies in my stomach, how do I know if that is saying I'm excited or run away?
Well, there's a combination that is hilarious. Butterflies in your stomach can be either, clearly.
Mhm.
What's the situation that you're in? Is it like a, oh my God, I really want to kiss you? Am I excited, like, woohoo? Or did something, am I nervous because I'm going to come online and somebody's going to interview me?
Mhm.
Um, what's the situation?
Mhm.
It's a whole life here.
Mhm.
So you need to discern what your present circumstances are. Circumstances have a lot to do with it. And if they're coming all the time, there might be something that's continually making you nervous. And we need to kind of start uncovering what that is. It could be so many different things.
Mhm. Yeah. Feel free to elaborate on your circumstances.
I mean, we uh, we don't always make great choices. Let's face it. And circumstances could be that we're not really safe and we think we're safe, which happens a lot.
Mhm.
We engage in activities that we thought was a really good idea, and we get there and we're like, oh my God, I really don't want to do this. We need to listen to those butterflies. We're around people that consistently cause butterflies. What's that about? We need to we need to figure that out. So
Mhm. Beautiful. So the last question I have was, I love your emphasis on the co-creative aspect of healing. Um, that really re-envisioning people's health and wellness from a space of personal responsibility. And you are meeting your, whoever it is, your therapist, with the spirit of collaboration versus being fixed and repaired.
yes,
So if you could speak to that shift,
yes,
because it's enormous and I feel like it's going to continue. So,
yes. I mean, unfortunately, in our medical world, they're starting to talk a teeny bit about responsibility, but usually in a punitive way, unfortunately. Like, you're not eating the right foods, I can tell, because you're heavy blood sugar, whatever. But a therapist of any extreme, whether it's a doctor, whoever, needs to, first of all, connect with you, listen to you. We don't want to know I don't want you to tell me what to do. I want you to understand where I'm at. And then we, as a community of two, can arrive at something that could support me better. Maybe there are things that I'm doing that are not supporting my body.
mhm,
Let's try to unwind that so that we can collaborate. But even when people come to me for body work, I mean, I'm also a health coach. So that's a very big thing with, teaching people, like, you can actually do all these wonderful things for yourself. So in between our appointments, you're getting closer to the relaxation that you're seeking or the joy that you're seeking. So we start to find processes. We start to find exercises. I mean, I actually made an online program, particularly for my clients, so that every day because I'm safe to them and they enjoy my voice, and they can watch and listen to things that will bring them to the space where every day they can do it. It's hard when you go, for instance, to a meditation retreat and you go for a week or 10 days or a month or two. I mean, people, they go for long periods of time and then they come back to the world. And then they like, I will sit every day. But then all of a sudden, the kids are crying and the phone is ringing. And how do we carve out that time? We stay in collaboration always, whether it's with a meditation tape from those teachers, and we create a situation in our lives where every day that collaboration is alive. Even if it's not said that way or thought of, it's just like, oh, I'm sitting and I'm listening to this beautiful music and I'm calming back down so that when I re-enter the therapeutic space, I have learned something and I can talk about that. Like, well, I really tried that, but it did not work this week. I mean, it doesn't always work. Or I could not slow my heartbeat down. Can we work with that? Or I notice when I go to work every day that there's this one person at work that I just don't trust them. That's my intuition. So how can we explore where I'm feeling that in my body and work with my breath so that maybe I can create a better boundary and I don't have to take that on. The collaborations are endless when you have somebody who's supporting you and not just saying, oh, hi, you're here? Boom, boom, boom. I'll just take that out for you. I'll take out all the stress from your body and you can walk out disembodied like a wet noodle. I mean, when you hear what people, oh, I'm not even in my body, great. Or, oh, I'm just gonna, I don't know if I can drive. And people are gonna leave, I always say to them, okay. Even before they've even met me, I write to them with their intake form and everything. Please take at least 15 minutes to an hour without a phone in your hand, taking a walk, sitting in your car, breathing the air, because you cannot go from this to that, because that's what's going on out there, whether you're driving a car or just seeing somebody. I mean, everybody is very animated. So how do you go? How do you maintain? That's really important to understand that it is a process, it's a collaboration, and you can bring in what you want to change and watch that happen over time, gently, slowly, and safely, instead of thinking that somebody's going to give you a pill, which you might need in order to get to that place, or just take the stress out of your body. And then it's usually going to come back like within 24 to 48 hours if you haven't arrived at meeting it and collaborating. So I just think without that, it can actually be traumatic for a body to have something taken away because it's been holding on for a reason. It's a protection sometimes. It's an event that happened and we built a whole fascial pattern that made us feel like we weren't going to die. I mean, literally. So we can't just take that away. We just allow the body to process things slowly so it can be who it is in every moment and build that safety and that self-care into their life.
Thank you so much. So much. I so appreciate you being here with everybody. Thank you, all of you, for being here. If people want to find you online, it's AllisonPost.com,
Yes.
right? And you're working on some, I know you have virtual online study programs and you have a private practice in Marin County, California. And you do calls with Zoom, but you're working on something new.
Oh, yes. It will come out in the next week or two, actually. During the pandemic, my husband had been in Malaysia and he came home and we were and I closed my practice down. We were working on different, we like to write and be very creative, but we were just all of a sudden like, okay, what are we going to do besides play piano or sing or get the guitar out, like cook? And suddenly I said to him, I would love if you could lead me in Qigong every day, because he's loves Qigong. And in our live classes, remember those? In our live classes, he teaches the movement. And because breath is into movement. So I said, how about if I get deeply into, because I've been doing Qigong for 30 years, but I said, I want to do yours only. And so we spend 6 to 8 weeks every day for a big chunk of time. We experimented with looking at gazing and doing gazing exercises while we were doing the movements, and then doing soft. And after about 6 to 8 weeks, I said, we need to give this to people. We don't know how long this is going to go on. So we just made a program of stillness, with meditations that I teach in all of my workshops that are usually 18 to 21 minutes to relax the vagus nerve. So you got deep relaxation, but you can move from that into the Qigong. So it's very slow and gentle, and it expresses oxygen, and calm into the body. It's modules, it's a self-paced, very inexpensive program, because now's the time that people need support there too. That we'll be introducing. And our other one is the book is in a video audio program with PDFs also, so that you can see the work on my belly, on video, and then listen to me slow it down so that you can work on your belly. And we just think that that's the good part of the online life, that we can have these tools and then learn to do them on their own. So we have a whole, I guess you can call it a Qigong and meditation series coming out. We're excited about it. We love it. And but everything's on our website.
Okay, great. And is there a newsletter if people want to know about the Qigong meditation launch?
Absolutely. People, if you go to the website, there's a contact page, or I think it's only on our contact page, or maybe at the bottom of every page. I'm very bad at advertising. It's not my thing. But there's a sign up for the newsletter, and there'll be one in the next week or two. We also do newsletters that talk about loneliness, that just talk about things that aren't only events that are happening or things that we're selling. Because we love people and we love to communicate. And I do hang out. I met you through Facebook. I feel so lucky. I'm not crazy about Facebook in all of its manifestations, but I have met some of the most wonderful people. And of course, all my childhood friends are on there. But it is such a great way to, just work together and to make the world better. We can use these tools for so many things. So we have all the information, everything you want to know is on our website.
Beautiful. Thank you again so much for being here. Allison's website again is allisonpost.com with 2 L's.
2 L's. All is on.
All is on. Perfect. So thank you again.
Pleasure. Such my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, pleasure. Good night, everybody.